Muchas gracias. Yo voy a hablar sobre cómo nosotros podemos obtener una visión del mundo informada. Mas infelizmente a minha portuñol não é suficiente para toda a minha conferência. E por isso vou ter de utilizar inglês. When I talk about the world in Sweden, my students think about the world as consisting of two types of countries: países industrializados y países en desarrollo. And when I ask them what the difference is, they tell me, oh, they have a vida larga y familia chica. And they have vida curta y familia numerosa. It is an idea which is very, very strong, and I see it even in the United States very much when I talk about it. And this was actually the start why we started to develop the software Trendalizer, where we could show every country here as bubbles. Every bubble here is a country. That is the United States. Down here we have India and China. The size of the bubble is how much people is living in the country. The color shows the continent where the country is situated. So you can see that the yellow ones here is the Americas, the red ones is Southern Asia, the green one is Middle East or Arab countries mainly. So this was the world in 1950. And you can see that on this axis I've showed fertility rate, the number of children per woman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Large families, familias numerosas, familias chicas. And here you have the length of life, 30 years, 50 years, 70 years, a long life and a short life. So they were right, my students were right. 1950, we had two types of countries in the world. There was países en desarrollo, who had large families and short life, and they were the países industrializados that had a long life and small families. But the tragedy with my students is that their worldview corresponds to reality the year their teachers were born. It means that they are about 1 to 2 generations after their time. Because this, my friends, this is what has happened when I start the world. Life has become longer with vaccination, hygiene, improved economy, improved schooling. And then in the 1960s, 1970s, life was quite good and family planning started in China, and China went for smaller families here. And you can see India goes for smaller families. Latin America goes for smaller families. Also the Arab countries start with family planning. They go up here. The religious leaders are not in the bedroom, so people don't care about them. And they come up here, and then you have the HIV epidemic, and now I will show what we think the world will continue. This is where we are today. And the projection is that everyone will follow. And once we think that we will, if nothing big tragedy happen in the world, we will be able to meet up there about 1930, 2030, 2040, or something like that. But let me make you a special comparison. When I'm here in Mexico, I would like to compare Mexico here. There's Mexico, and there's the United States. And in the United States, I so often hear this about the family sizes being the big difference. And this is what has happened. When I show Mexico, the progress was first in Mexico towards better health, and then family planning started in 70, and Mexico is catching up with the United States, and they will get very surprised when they realize that this is where we are today. You have almost a complete catch-up. And the catch-up, what am I showing here? This is the bedroom. It's whether there is pillow talk in the bedroom. The young couple discuss and they decide what sort of family they should have together. And this is the bathroom and the kitchen. The difference, yeah, if you have water and soap and you have food on the kitchen table, you live for 65 years. Public health is not complicated. It's quite straightforward. And you can see here that if I change this axis, and I'm going to change it now to money, you will see what the difference is between Mexico and the United States. I changed it to GDP per capita, income per person in comparable dollars. There is the gap. You have 9,000 here in Mexico, you have 39,000 there. And if I add then China, I would like to add China to this, you will see that Where do I have China? Here I have China. You see, China has almost catch up with Mexico, but China came another way. China came this way. China came from down here. They first got healthy, and then they got rich. And now they have almost catch up with Mexico. But the difference with the United States today is not in human capability, in human resources, is the bloody money, which is the difference. This is the difference. That the income differs so much in the world. Now, what we can go on here is to show you the income in individual families. This is income per person per day, $1, $10, $100. And this is the distribution in the world as we had it in 2000, when we have the last almost complete data for all countries. This is Africa. Many people in poverty. $1 here, this is the poverty line. If you live below this line, you are hungry. You go to bed hungry. You don't have food enough. And this is OECD countries, that club. I used to call it the Rotary Club of the United Nations, the richest countries over there. And this is Latin America. The tragedy of Latin America. You find any income in the world. You find poor people, you find middle-income people, relatively rich, and very rich people. This is the tragedy in Latin America, is the enormous inequity in the continent. This is former Soviet Union, the East Europe, and as you said, the Soviet bloc, almost becoming Latin America-like. This is East Asia, Southeast Asia, this is South Asia, and now I would like to show you the world as it was when I was a student. It was like this, and this is what have happened in the world. The population has grown in the world. This is size of population. People get out of poverty, but they don't get so much out of poverty. They get there, the year 2000 was there, and we take the last projection we have. This is more or less where we are. So why doesn't people jump up and down and say, Viva la globalización, it's very good, we are getting richer. They don't do it. Many don't like the globalization because they are getting richer, but they just get one step from the poverty line. This is where they are standing. And just take a disease in the family and they fall back into poverty. So globalization also have not taken away the last 1 to 2 billion out of poverty. This is the main tragedy we are having. So how could we understand this? How could we understand the world? I decided that this sort of digital technology is not enough to explain. Instead, I would like to use an analog technology, which is much more practical. Look at this box here. This box represents 1 billion people in the world. This is how many people there were in the world when Mexico started the rebellion against Spain in 1810. There were 1 billion people. They lived there. During 150 years, up to 1960, when I was in school, we had got 2 billion people more in the world population. The world population had grown. And then we learned that there were 2 different types, países en desarrollo and industrialized countries. And there was a big gap between them. They were rich, they were poor. They had 2 children per woman, they had 6 children per woman. Population was still growing. So what has happened during the 50 years since I went to school? Well, we've had a new addition with 4 billion people more in the world population. And where did they end up? Well, this one got even richer. They moved up here. That's why they say hooray for globalization. They liked it because it made them richer. They are still as poor as they are. These people landed more or less here. But some were successful. The emerging economy, China, parts of Latin America, Arab countries, they ended here. And they are now as rich and wealthy as the Primero Mundo used to be. That's where they ended. This is more or less how the world looks like today. And you can see that the pattern of the boxes fits to the patterns up there. The rich is in that way. Now what is going to happen until I die? I plan to be 100 years. I will live to 2050. I was in Shanghai recently, and I've seen that most probably they'll catch up. They don't like it down here. They don't like it at all. But this is happening. And I see parts of Latin America being very successful also. What will happen here? Well, it's very much about the environment. But these people also want a decent life, and they will move over to here, more or less. This is where they want to be. The problem is here, because they already have 2 children per woman. They have 2 children per woman. The population growth is not here. The population growth is here, with people who don't have food enough, don't have school, don't have healthcare, don't have a family planning. That's where we are going to get 2 billion people more. And we are going to get nothing we can do about it. 2050, we are going to be 9 billion people. This is what we are going to be. But if these people can get a little better life, everyone can get into school, health service, family planning, they can end up here, and the world may look like this in the future, and we can all be together. If the people down here can start investing in green technology, United States give $5 billion a year to 25,000 cotton farmers. And that's more than they give to investment in green technology with federal money. So it's quite amazing. And these countries haven't understood yet that they have to become a foundation of the new world, not live a separate life somewhere over here. This is what we hope will happen. And it can happen, it's possible. We cannot predict the future, as Ken say, but we can realize that this can be done. Now, why don't we see this? Why is it so difficult to see this? Well, because we don't trust often that people in these boxes, the natural boxes here, can do great things. Look at who? Xiao Liang from China. She's good at taking care of money. In fact, she has been taking care of $2.4 trillion. She's the head, or she was during the last 10 years, the head of Las Reservas de Divisas in China. How did that grow? Well, this is the graph. From 1978, when Deng Xiaoping started with market economy in China, they had almost no reserve. Reserve, what is reserve? Reserve is when the countries sell goods more than they buy, they pay salaries, raw material, profit to the capitalist, tax to the government, and then they still have money in the reserve. This is how it grew in China. Look. Nothing happened. It takes a time to build a market economy. Here they come. Bam, 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 bam. During the last 10 years, China accumulated $1 billion a day in foreign exchange reserve. How much does Bill and Melinda Gates give to health in the poor? They give $3 billion a year. That is in China Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's 3 days. There's an enormous amount of money in the world. If that money is put to the right use, we can't say that we will, but we have a good chance. It's possible to solve the environmental situation. I'm not an optimist. I'm a possibilist. I see that it can be done if we choose to do the right things. Now, how does the trade develop? You've heard about US being having difficulties in handling these realities. And what I'm now going to show you is more or less how we see what will happen in the world. Unfortunately, the fonts here are sort of small, but I'll help you through this image. I show you time on this axis. This is 1800 is here, 1800. I show you these countries. It's United States, United Kingdom, United States, and down here, China, Japan, and Mexico. And I will show the economic growth. This is dollar per capita, 1,000 and 10,000 up there, from 1800, 1900, 2000, and what may happen into the future. Not a prediction, but what may happen if trends go on like this. Look what happened during the first 100 years here. From 1810, from the independence of Mexico to the revolution in Mexico, this is what happened. The British and the Yankees, they grow their economy. They became rich. Japan started to go here, and Mexico go together with Japan. Mexico and Japan go together. China failed completely. This is what happened the first 100 years. Then, after the First World War, what happened was a catastrophe in 1920 in Mexico. Mexico lost Japan. Japan fell during the Second World War. Then we came into the miracle years for Mexico, but there were more miracles in Japan, and Japan made the catch-up. And here China is coming. Look at China. Look at China. They're coming. And with a projection, China is coming. And they get scared in Washington because here they are now, side by side with Mexico. This is the last projection. This is 2015. And I've made a projection. Ken, you didn't like projections, but I will do one now. I will ask the question, when will China have the same income per person as the United States of America? And I use this stick here. This is my projection method. It's very easy to control. I see them going up there. They will hit the United States here. And I see it's 2048 in July, the 27th of July, 2048. It is my 100th birthday. It will happen. And I suggest that Mexico join China and get up to there. Huh? So, what is the problem with this? We must have a new worldview. We must realize that times are changing finally in the world. Where did I drop my there I am. Here I am. Look here. Países en desarrollo en primer mundo. 6 billion, 1 billion. That's not the right way of looking at it. We thought this was G7. You remember G7? They used to run the world. They decided everything in the world. I'll take this down so you will see better. Huh? And then came a time when the emerging economies became richer, and then came G5. Look, Singh, Lula, Calderon, and this is Mendeved and Mbeke. You see, the new states are forming and they have much more people. So we should talk about countries with ingreso baixo, medios y altos. It don't mix Mexico and Somalia in the same box. This is wrong. And 15th of November 2008, something happened which really surprised me. It was a person who understood this, who I never thought would understand it. I thought he would be the last one, but he got problem. George Bush. He had severe problem. You can see, he got headache. It's called Lehman Brothers headache. He lost money, had no money. He needed tax money. He looked in the pocket, he had no money. And he had to look to these people, and they had money. And he had to do a very painful thing. He had to phone a Latino trade union leader, Lula da Silva, and ask for money. This was very painful for Bush. But he realized, and then he called the G20 meeting. And the G20 meeting met here. And you can see Bush is standing there in the middle. And let's look who's standing beside him. This is the new world. You can see it here. We have Bush there. You know, here we have the Chinese communists, here we have the Muslim, and here we have the socialists from Latin America. So Bush decides he leans to Latin America. Can you see? A Latino socialist is better than the other guys. After all, he started to feel Americano. And today Latin America is helping the richer countries to solve their crisis which they created. So this is where we are today. And people say that you cannot use the internet. You cannot use this. Teachers tell you, don't trust the internet. I hear it in my university. I think you have the same here. They say this Google is no good for internet. And especially YouTube. You must not use YouTube in teaching. Oh, YouTube was not available. I think I dropped the net here. What I wanted was to brag a little. I worked in America for half a year, so I learned how to brag. But now I lost the internet, it seems. It seems I will write sex. What do you search for on the internet? Teachers say they only search for unserious things here. They search for sex, money, and health. And what do they get? Oh, it's not available. Go home and test. Go home and search on sex, money, and health, and you will see who is on top, who is on top. It's Swedish Public Health is on top of sex, money, and health with a very nice lecture in demography. The internet can be very useful. We can get the fact-based worldview, and I advise all of you, actualiza tu visión del mundo. Si Bush lo hizo, tú puedes hacerlo.